By the way, I would have voted for Obama a third time if I could. Welcome in to the Bro 4 Squad podcast, where we are just a bunch of bros drinking beer and talking movies. This is the 2022 Spooktacular. Whoa.
Oh man, I'm scared.
Sorry. I know, I went too hard. Sorry. I'm your host, the Mayor, Jeff Hornacek. Before we get into the movie discussion tonight, let us go around and meet the fellow bros. We begin with our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycley. Ronnie, if there is a house on my street where a dentist lives and he gives out toothbrushes instead of candy this Halloween, what are the kids' legal options as far as suing them?
I think it's actually not a legal option. It's a requirement to egg and toilet paper, fork. What was the thing we used to do? Where
forking was bad.
Yeah, and then
we would take for sale signs and put them on his yard like it was Friday Night Lights.
So remember instant potatoes?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So if it like rains, they like sprout, right?
Yeah, but if you get some dew, nice little dew in the morning, you have an obligation as a child. If anyone hands you a toothbrush, fuck with that house.
Shithead teenagers are so creative with the pranks.
Oh, I have karma coming to me one day. I just know it.
100%. Next, we go to our enforcer in the paint, Matt Geiger. Geiger, I actually read a news article, and it said parents should check their children's candy this year because people are putting edible gummies in there. But that's absurd, right? No one would purposely give away their drugs for free.
No, and the only reason the parents are checking it is because they want to get high themselves.
I'm taking this, little Timmy.
I love how many times did Johnny Depp say during his trials, like, "Oh, I didn't want to waste a high. I mean, that drug's going to do nothing to me."
That's genius. But yeah,
I love that.
Think about if you, like, let's say someone were to give out edible gummies. You know how expensive that would be to give it to even like 20 kids?
Thanks.
Dude, people don't even want to give that to their friend. Be like, "Hey, man, do you mind if I share?" You're like, I only have like 5 left, so you want to split it?" Like, no one's giving this to children.
I have nothing against weed. I mean, I used to smoke it, but I never got that. If I brought a 6-pack to a party, I get pretty pissed if someone just drank one. But if someone brings weed, they ask like, "Okay, let's get 20 people and help me smoke this bag." I never got. Every time I smoke weed with someone, I'm like, "Do I tip you? Like, how does this work?"
Yeah, it is true.
Because I wasn't the guy that ever bought weed. Just if it was around, I'd smoke it.
There's no reason to buy weed. No one will give it to you.
They're usually not the richest guy in your friends group either. The guy that brings weed. Comment below what the protocol is. I mean, it's like me and Thurman. I don't want to walk in his line when he's putting. Like, what is the protocol?
Well, whatever agreement you make, the other person inevitably ends up too high to even remember. Like, did you pay me for that? I don't even fucking whatever. Zooted out my mind. All right, well, here on the Bro 4 Squad podcast, we begin every episode with the most important thing in any bro's life, and that is Chest Day. Now, this is, I believe, because we haven't done one every year, but this is our third Spooktacular, if my search of our YouTube channel is accurate. And each time we've done a bit of a different theme. I think one time, actually, it was Cycley and Geiger competing in a trick or treat competition where I read a plot synopsis of a horror movie, and you guys had to try and guess what it was. And I think another time, Cycley and I just talked about like our most anticipated horror movies. Today, what we are doing is revisiting some classic horror franchises, and each naming what we think is the best or maybe our favorite horror franchise, which one is the worst or sucks the hardest, and then I have an honorable mention one, but if you guys don't, that's totally fine. So, in the theme of the spooky season, let's begin, I guess, on a positive note. Best horror franchise, or our favorite one to watch. Geiger, I think I know what you're going to say for yours, but why don't you lead us off?
I mean, mine is Halloween. Now, I haven't seen the newest one, and I've been told not to.
Keep it that way.
But the first one they redid, I very much enjoyed. I say redid. Like, the Jamie Curtis new trilogy one, that first one was good. I back Rob Zombie a lot. After the Munsters, I think I'm gonna have to maybe, like the political guy, where I'm like, I think the party's gone too far. I'm just gonna drop.
You're like, can you pull the bandwagon over and I'll just jump out at the next light?
But I did enjoy those. It was a kind of a cool take on Michael Myers as a kid and how he got to be Michael Myers. I'll tell you, man, the best one is, I mean, the original Halloween is a fucking classic. Halloween H2O is extremely underrated. Actually, that's how I wish they would have taken off from the franchise. I thought it'd be cool if, like, you know, you would think Michael Myers was dead the whole time, but actually he was, and the new Michael Myers was Josh Hartnett. I thought that'd be fucking cool if they did it that way. I mean, he's not doing anything else. But the first Halloween was on last night, and I watched that and the second one that took place in the same night at the hospital. And I mean, John Carpenter. I mean, if you're like a film student or any horror connoisseur, and you know, Cycly and Orange, you could take it from here, but I think he's almost like the Beatles of like horror fucking movies, man.
Absolutely.
Like
Dude, and he came up with the score for that too.
he kind of he's shined the light, kind of showed people where to go, especially with I think Carrie came out before Halloween, but with the score, I mean, the fucking score, dude. Like everyone knows the Halloween score, but that's my favorite one. And I think we're gonna find here that when you name your favorite one, someone's like, "What? They have 4 movies that suck." I'm like, "Yeah, but they had 4 other ones that were fucking phenomenal too." Because horror franchises, there's just so fucking many.
Yeah, well, with horror franchises, you can't find one that doesn't have a few warts. Like, there's not a like even Cycling Mind, one that I don't want to spoil what it is, but like all these things, it's the Caesar effect. They either die a hero or live long enough to see themselves become the villain, basically.
Yeah, and can I say really quickly, just to Matt's point about John Carpenter, on Netflix, there's like a little mini documentary show called like The Movies That Made Us or something like that. Like,
yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, Movies That Made Us. And there is one about Halloween. And basically all the show is like a 20, 30-minute thing about like how these movies got made, why they're so iconic to us. And the Halloween one is just legendary because, as you may know, the original concept of the movie was the babysitter killer. Like Killers was the name of the movie. Had nothing to do with Halloween, right? Like the everything else about the movie wasn't supposed to happen, and then they had no money. It was so low budget, and then the producer, I can't remember, but he's the first name shown when you see the original Halloween. He's the one who's like, "Hey, just put it on Halloween and call it Halloween." And it shows you how they got the Michael Myers mask and how they actually came up with that.
I've seen that because they've seen it on Back to the Future and a lot of other movies. I've actually
I need
seen
to watch those. If you would have told them at the time that this,
I know I don't want to take any of your guys's, but just to compare it to something I'm watching now is House of Dragons. Is like I love the slow build.
Yeah,
I mean, he doesn't kill anyone until like the 3/4 of the movie's fucking done, man. It's like I think he kills one person once he gets out of it, but you're not really sure what he wants or what he's doing. It's just such a slow. They're building up tension. It's fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. And at least with Halloween, like, no, they're not all great movies, but they've had like the original one, even the second one, like you said, that takes place in the same night, and the 2018 one, I think are really, really good. So to have 3 above average movies in a franchise is hard to do for horror.
I always back H2O. That's a really good movie too.
Yeah. H2O is underrated, 100%.
We've done movie commentaries on the original H2O and the 2018 one. So shameless plug for ourselves. Good pick, Matt. And to keep your positive thoughts about the franchise, I would just stop. Just don't watch any.
Yeah.
So can we talk about Halloween for a minute? Because I think it's a fun one. It's like like you said, it's the Beatles, right? Like it really is what gave us the slasher genre. It's like what gave us the nightmares, the Friday 13th, the screams, everything you get in the 80s and 90s. But for me, what I do struggle with is you're absolutely right. When it hits. But there are some bad Halloween movies. And that's the really the intrigue of the franchise is
the
how
line
do you balance
trick
that?
or treat motherfucker in a Halloween Resurrection,
which is unwatchable. Now 4 and 5 with the little girl is not like I could watch them, if there's nothing else on. But there's I mean the third one is Season of the Witch, just doesn't have Michael Myers in it. Like that one is like if you get 20 minutes into that, like
I've actually heard it's good if you just take it as a separate
not Halloween movie.
I guess.
The little girl in it, like, is Jamie Lee Curtis in those?
No. 4 and 5. It's like the Return of Michael Myers, the Revenge of Michael Myers. Now I think that little girl's supposed to be her niece. I haven't seen those since.
Yes, it is. Yeah, H2O is when Jamie Lee Curtis comes back.
And I don't really understand how it's her niece. Like, that can't be Michael Myers' daughter, is it? I don't fucking know. They had another brother.
No, Michael Myers. That storyline dies at 2, right? Like it gets retconned immediately.
Cycly sent me a flow chart of like how these movies, which ones connect to which,
Halloween's is
and
weird.
it was a fuck. It
There
literally
is
looked like
one
you're
person's
drunk.
dead. Well, he's not anymore, so just have fun and watch the cars go by.
It is like the gif where Charlie Day is like has all the fucking strings connecting the pictures behind.
I'm pretty sure there's like 4 paths you can take on the Halloween franchise.
Whatever. They don't know. All right, Cycly, what is your best horror franchise? Or your favorite, I guess. You don't have to
Yeah, so I think I looked at this. I think there's the fun thing about this is there's different ways to look at it. Is it the most iconic, which I would absolutely agree Halloween is right up there, if not the most iconic. I chose to look at this as what movie produced the most consistent movies, right? Like I'm not saying that they had the best horror movies because, Jeff, you and I talk about Saw. We're huge Saw heads, right? Like,
yes.
But Saw consistently is not, you can't say all 9 or 10 of those have been above average, as much as you and I enjoy the plot. So I selected Scream, and not necessarily because I think they're the best movies. I think from 1 to 5, the worst adaptation you get is Scream 3, which at its worst is just fine.
I like Scream 3.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, if that's the worst movie in your franchise, then you did something right. And what I think Scream did, it is a couple things, right? Like, one, they brought back the John Carpenter era slashers. The obviously Wes Craven being the Nightmare on Elm Street. The 90s had kind of, shriveled up in that kind of genre of horror, and Scream brought it back, and then started its own with I Know What You Did Last Summers and all the other things that came after that. So it inspired a new generation of horror. But it also like served this like meta, right, satire movie within a movie. Like it was able to take itself seriously and not seriously, poke fun of itself, like hit the stereotypes of the genre. Like it's just impressive if you actually break down Scream. The first Scream is legitimately scary. The twist, I mean, again, I think to our younger listeners, don't realize that Drew Barrymore was the lead up to the movie. She was cast as the main.
Didn't she host SNL to
Yes,
promote that film?
She hosted SNL. Everyone's watching this. What's that, Matt?
She's on the poster.
Yeah, she's on the poster.
Which is genius.
It's genius. And no one knew that going in. And then, boom, she literally dies in the opening scene, which, I mean, I think Scream has now like set its standard for how it opens. Right. But what an iconic move in the 90s to do that. So, I mean, Scream 2, fantastic sequel. Scream 3, like I said, could be argued as is the weakest one, but Scream 4 and 5 hit back really hard.
I thought Geiger might go with Scream because I know he loves the OG one.
Those are very well done, for sure.
Yeah. The reason Scream works so well, Psyche, like you said, with the sequels, is that because it plays this sort of toes the line between like meta, but then also just being like a good quality slasher whodunit movie. And this is I think what works so well with the Lega sequel one that they did last year that you and I actually saw in theaters was it can like you can't say that it's predictable or playing by the same tropes that all these types of movies do because it beats you to the punch and calls those things out in the movie before they actually happen.
100%.
So it's almost like the person who's like self-deprecating, like, yeah, I know that I got a bad haircut. I'm gonna bring it up and make fun of it. Yeah. Disarming you. Now you can't throw that in my face.
When you're in on the joke, it weakens the complaint, right? Like you're saying, if you're the nerd at school getting bullied for something and you own it even more, then it's just like, oh, you can't take away their power.
That was my problem. Was I fought the bullies in high school and spent senior year in a locker.
Yeah, I'm glad we found you.
I feel like you heard me that one time and just walked past.
Yeah, maybe. It was the draft events.
I guess. I was in the gym, but that's... all right, I might mention one of the Scream movies later, and by might, I mean definitely will. My best horror franchise. So this has only 2 movies. Are we allowed to count that as a franchise, or is that just like, no?
Yeah, you do you. As you said pre-pod, you do you.
Yeah. So this is one of these movies is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. It's behind The Strangers and a few others, but Genius film, and this is the Collector franchise, if either of you are familiar with this. So The Collector is a 2009 film written by the minds behind Saw 2, 3, and 4. Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan wrote the screenplay. Marcus Dunstan directed it. The plot, Cycly, if you haven't seen this movie, have you seen
not
The
seen this movie.
Oh my God. I cannot recommend it highly enough. So here's the plot synopsis. So there is a sort of like a petty thief. He's like able to crack safes, and he is doing some construction work on a house for a rich family, and he spots this really fancy safe in the master bedroom. And the family says that they are staying in the house, but they're about to leave for a camping trip over the weekend. So he makes plans to come back later that night, break in when the family's not there, and he is going to crack their safe. So this not bank robber? What is there a term for someone who can just crack safes?
Safe cracker?
Genius. Safe. So the safe cracker comes back to the house in the middle of the night, picks the lock, goes upstairs to the safe, and he hears a scream. And he realizes that some sadistic person has trapped the family in their own house and set up a series of traps to torture them. So the movie kind of goes from there.
And there's a sequel?
There is a sequel called The Collection, which I can't even really describe the plot because then you would know how the first one ends. But number one, the Collector himself has a really fucking creepy mask.
I've never even heard of this.
It's basically
and I consider myself like obsessed with horror. Like, what the hell?
It's basically like Saw before Saw got like ridiculous. That's how I would describe it. The first one's from 2009 and the second one is from 2013. The second one not as good as the first one, but the first one of the coolest ideas for a horror movie with some cool twists and turns, and then just some of the best tension and fear building of anything I've ever seen.
I'm gonna have to check this out this weekend.
Yeah, this is definitely down. I don't know why I thought you had seen this before. I'm sorry. I would have recommended it to you long ago. But the Collector.
Yeah, I'm like reading about it now. Matt, have you seen this?
I've never heard of this.
The second one came out in 2013, and the second one might have been like VOD. The second one's okay. The first one is pretty awesome.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'd watch it. Sounds cool.
Yeah. It basically has like some of the traps are like ideas you could tell that like they came up with in a Saw movie, and they were like, well, I like that. We just can't squeeze it into this film. Or it's too normal. It's not ridiculous enough.
Would you say it's scary, or is it more like
it is
like I don't consider the Saw movies scary. Right?
No, it's scarier than I think any of the Saws. Is how I would describe it. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
All right, worst horror franchise. This is pretty easy because there's a lot of as much as I love horror movies, a lot of these franchises start to get really fucking brutal the further you get into them. Geiger, why don't you go first?
I mean, there's a lot I could pick here, but I'm gonna pick something that there's only 2 movies again, I think, and that is the Ring franchise.
No, get out.
Okay, for me, for horror,
I'm not a big Ring fan either.
I need it.
It's so good.
I need it to be like, okay, this could happen. Like Halloween could happen.
Yeah.
And if Michael Myers comes into my fucking house, I'm like, oh shit. If a fucking 12-year-old girl jumps out of my TV right now, I'm gonna knock her the fuck out, and then come back and drink my beer and then pot. And then a movie that you watch that kills you in 2 days. I mean, basically, so you're watching Birds of Prey and you wish that you fucking be dead in 2 days. But someone's gonna fucking do it for you, I guess.
Yeah, you're like, can we just speed this up and do it like before the third act?
I remember seeing this like in 8th grade. I'm just like, okay, it's scary because I'm in theaters and they do the jump effect. But other than that, I'm like, I'm not buying it, dude. I'm just not, with Jason, with Michael Myers, with some of them, I'm like, God, like these guys are physical presence. I mean, they're like 6'6", 250, like fucking like, Micah Parsons coming at you with a fucking knife shot. And now you're like trying to scare. Anytime you're trying to scare me with a child, it doesn't work for me at all. The Exorcist is kind of the same. Where I'm like, okay, there's like 2 chicks, like whatever. I'm out. I can't do it.
Remind me again, Cycly, how does the girl actually kill you? Does she have like
I
a spell that she does, or?
I think she's. I mean, it's just the possession. Yeah. I mean, I don't think she's actually a physical.
One,
Okay.
she came out of the TV.
Yeah, it's like he's basically. I mean, like she's not actually coming out of the TV. I mean, like he's seeing it, right? Like
I guess
not everyone else is seeing it, right? Like, so if I was standing in that room, I wouldn't be seeing that shit.
And I believe that there's like supernatural beings out there. I actually went my friend's grandparents' house was on a show in high school and it was haunted. And we decided to stay there. And then he was even like, like dishes would get broken in the middle of the night. Like he'd have his sheets and he'd feel like someone set. But then I'm like, but what would they do to you? Like they do anything to you besides, it's like I
have like a video you need to see.
So I'm like just sitting down there in the dark. I'm like, I guess it's scary because I can't see. I might stub my toe. But if it's a physical presence or something, that'll scare me.
I can respect that as someone who does like realistic horror movies. But I will say, what I love about The Ring, the first one, is she really wasn't the bad girl really isn't that until that last scene where she comes out of the TV. Like that movie's like, to me, like the whole slow build, the eeriness of it, and the way it's filmed and directed, like that's what made that movie creepy to me. Like, yeah, the cherry on top was the girl like crawling and coming out of the TV, but that's like just like you said, Michael Myers doesn't even make his first kill till second half of the film.
When her little video comes up and it's her and her hair down, I remember looking at my girlfriend at the time, like the only thing she's missing is a My Chemical Romance poster in the fucking background. Like this does not scare me.
Hey, she's gonna coming after everything I love.
She's gonna split her wrist before she's gonna do anything to fucking me. So I was like, what is this supposed to do?
It'd be funny if you re-edited her coming out of the well to the Avril Lavigne song where she goes, "Hey, you, I don't like your boyfriend." Yeah. It kind of works as like a remix music video. They did make a movie called, I'm assuming it's, I don't know what the canon situation is here, but a 2017 sequel called Rings.
Yeah.
Which, if I remember right from the trailer, doesn't one of the videos of the girl play like on a flight or something, and everyone on the flight gets possessed?
I've never seen either of the Rings 2 or a Ring 2 or Rings.
Yeah, I guess there's 3.
Matt, your boy Vincent D'Onofrio's in the 2017 one.
Oh, that's good.
Might want to talk to him about that.
Did the girl grow up in the third one, get all moody? Just want to play on her phone.
She's like, oh, Dad.
My wife and I rewatched like The Ring recently, and I was like, it still holds up. You should give it another shot.
To Matt's point, like if you did see, like at the time when we were in middle school, I think when the first one came out, like if you did see it in theaters, it was pretty fucking scary. A lot of it was the score and the jump scares, but
is that like getting possessed? That's fine. Like The Shining, because Jack Nicholson, gets possessed, and he's the most physical, demanding person on screen. Amityville Horror, Ryan Reynolds gets possessed, and he obviously is with his wife and 2 kids, so he'd be the scariest person to get possessed. If his 8-year-old kid got possessed, I'd be like, I don't know, fucking just spank his ass into his fucking room. You're fucking dead to it.
Take his cell phone.
When they're not of the physical world, Matt, you can't physically harm them.
Whatever.
Not with that mindset.
Like Scream says, you gotta follow the rules.
I do get what he's saying, though. The first one, it was just kind of like in that sweet spot, too, though, of like the early aughts where like movies like that and The Grudge were coming out. I think there was one
They're the Japanese horror movies, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They were basing it on.
It's not like a man thing either. I mean, if somebody ties you up and a woman has a knife, I mean, that's scary. Like, it doesn't have to be. I'm just saying, like,
sexy.
Yeah, I think it just turned on. But
it's called a fear boner.
An arm that's a fucking 12-year-old girl comes out of my TV. I'm just like, whoa, what the fuck?
Well, I hope a 12-year-old girl does come out of your TV, because I think you would be quite shocked and frightened.
He'd probably just be like, this is why we don't have Spectrum.
I'd be like, I'd ask my wife, like, I guess we didn't pay the cable bill again. Because girl, fucking TV.
That's what Uverse does when you're behind on your cable bill.
Cut the cord.
This is a long advertisement to just say, just cut the cord, guys. All right, Cycly, worst horror franchise, or I guess the one you least like or feel like it's the easiest to just dog on.
Yeah, this was a tough one because there are so many qualified candidates. I mean, horror, again, as someone who loves horror is the most interesting franchise because it can go, or genre, because it can be iconic, but the line to just decent or mediocre to just trash is so thin. And so there's so many, but so for me, I picked one that's, again, has been really mainstream and has had a lot of movies on purpose because I'm like it's okay. Can I pick the Hostel movies because there's a score porn? Like, I go with Paranormal Activity.
Okay.
So
Is that because of the supernatural, or they just beat found footage to death, or sort of both?
Combination of all of that. So okay, so the first one, fine. Like, let's say they have an original idea here, like found footage, recording in the house, weird things, creepy things happen. You don't know why they're happening. There's a little bit of a story there. It was cool, like, for the first time around, but like, what, 6 times, I think?
Yeah, dude, if you get on Paramount Plus, it's gross how many sequels they made to
Like,
this. And they kept trying to tie them in. Like, at one point, they focus on a Latin American family and somehow say they're like third cousins of the original chick.
yeah, I decided to do a binge watch of all of them a few years ago, maybe during COVID. And it's just funny because they don't offer anything different. Like, right, like as Scream progresses, yeah, they're doing the same kills and stuff, but they're, like you said, they're in on the joke. They're talking about the tropes. You're going through the story. I mean, even the Saw had development. Yeah, you're seeing traps again, but there's something else going on. Paranormal Activity, like, what are you, like, if you're someone who finds that scary? Cool. I just saw the same thing happen. A door swung open in the background. Did you see that? Oh man, the sheets were just pulled off the bed. Like, is that something you need to see 6 times? Like, it's not changing anything. And so, like, I mean, these movies were cheap to make. I get it. You just easily make your money times 5 or 10. And so they're going to make another one. But like, that franchise, to me, it doesn't do anything for horror. It's really cheap, gimmicky horror, and there's no story to really make it worth its while. So I'm not saying the first one was bad. I just consistently, again, across the board, Paranormal Activity has not really done anything to merit 6 movies or however many it is.
Yeah, and I don't know if it counts as found footage, because I think you and I prefer the found footage where it's like not voyeuristic. It's like Blair Witch or like Cloverfield.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but most of Paranormal Activity, it's like either security cameras, or it's like you just feel like you're almost like a fly on the wall. It's like kind of not creepy in the horror sense. You just feel like gross that you're watching like this.
Yeah, they're like, oh, something weird's happening. Let's start recording to document this shit. Like,
for our TikToks.
I mean, I just don't find it. Again, I'm not saying don't find it scary, but how many times can you watch something like that with something? Like, if you guys saw something flutter behind me, like, okay, that's creepy. And then if you saw the same thing, I mean, eventually you're just like, dude, I'm gonna watch something else.
And this isn't I guess skip ahead 30 seconds. This might be a spoiler, but I haven't seen enough of them. But I feel like the problem with this franchise is that it killed so many characters at the end of each movie that then, in order to have a sequel make sense, they had to like this family tree is a fucking mess. The people that they keep in
yeah, it's just
future films.
I will give them credit for the creepiest scene in the entire franchise was, again, the first one, which is the only decent one, where she just the camera's fast forwarding like 8 hours.
Yeah.
And she's just standing over him. Like, that was a creepy scene. So I will give them that credit.
Well, thank you.
Matt, have you seen... You're welcome. Matt, have you seen The Paranormals?
No, I don't. I haven't seen a lot of these movies, actually.
But you've heard of Paranormal Activity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those, like, you had to go see it in theaters when it came out. I think we were like early college, maybe. But then, of course, they were like, "Oh, you guys like this?" And then they made fucking 4 more, and we were like, "Well, not that much." I liked it. I didn't love it. All right, my worst horror franchise, and this is kind of funny because one of these movies is actually in my top 100 movie list. But I think of all the horror franchises you could possibly come up with, this one has most frustratingly gotten the least inventive. Like, at least Friday the 13th kept trying to add like a new wrinkle. Like, they took fucking Jason into space. That's how desperate they got to mix things up. This horror franchise has done nothing except stick to the exact same boring ass script. Excuse me. That is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that was on my list.
Yeah, so the 2003 one with Jessica Biel is legitimately one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, and it is in my top 100 list. I think it was my... Well, I'll find it here in a second. But for the most part, in Cycling, I did a commentary on the new one that came out this past year on Netflix. It was my number 92. And I really just feel like there's... It's
To
like
clarify, the new one was not 92, the 2003 one.
Sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
My top 100 list, the 2003 one is the 92nd best.
Someone
movie.
would have been like, "What the hell?"
I worded that very poorly. Thank you. I just don't feel like there's any like juice left to squeeze out of that thing. It's like couple's car breaks down in bumfuck Texas. They go to some house where inbreds have a like adult man-child that wields a chainsaw and kills them. And that's basically the plot to almost every single movie. Now, the new one had a little bit of a change on it, but not really. Like someone's bus breaks down or their bus ends up in bumfuck.
Did it break
Texas.
down? Do you remember?
I don't know.
The problem with that
God.
franchise is it's so like one-dimensional that story is actually true. They never caught the guy, so you could kind of go anywhere with it, but they always keep the same fucking story. It's I understand what you're saying, and it's something that I would almost argue I'd want to see more of if done the right way.
Right. And it's one of those things like I get a lot of times the reason these horror movies end up sucking the further you get into a franchise is they get too crazy, like too ridiculous, but at least they're trying to do something ridiculous. Like Friday the 13th, which again is not as grounded as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but they like resurrect Jason and then he's like in downtown New York in one movie. Like at least that's fun. They're just fucking moving him all over
He's
the
like
place.
shopping.
Yeah. The real murder is how they get you with these credit card interest rates. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre to me, like even the sequels, like it's just this new group of fucking teens whose car breaks down and they end up at this fucking farmhouse. So I don't know, it's just like the least creativity, which is the one thing that I think you can at least commend with a lot of these movies.
And those movies, can I say, like I agree. I almost picked this one. There was a couple I have on the list on my worst horror. It also plays into the bad horror movie trope of just idiot victims. You know what I mean?
That's
like
true.
I'm gonna run upstairs and take a shower while I'm gonna go to a place where I can't get out of. Like there's even
That progressive commercial where they're like, let's hide behind the chainsaws.
Yeah, like Texas. That's another problem with the movies. Like there's a good concept here, but when you watch those movies, you are literally watching the biggest idiots, and you're just like, yeah, dude, of course you're gonna get killed. And the newest one, you and I were just shocked at one particular scene. You know, in the bus, like why the bus stopped.
Oh yeah.
For absolutely no reason.
That's
and
true.
we're just like, so we're not going to even question that at all. We're just going to be okay.
Yeah, Matt. In the
All right,
new
cool.
one, they're on a. Sorry, skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre partly spoiled. But they're on a bus getting away from Leatherface, and the bus driver, for literally no reason, stops the bus, opens the door, and just runs off.
Yeah,
So
when they were all
Leatherface
getting
just-
away. Now it did lead us to the coolest scene in the movie where he just kills everyone on the bus.
I
But
could like own a business in Dallas right now.
Yeah, it probably does. He's smart.
He just
All right,
like
last one.
Irvin, like, hey, I found Jesus. All that stuff's behind me. You guys just too.
That's the old me. You wouldn't even you can't even prosecute me because it's so the old me. Like I don't think that's how it works. All right, last one. I'll just go through this rapid fire because I don't have much to say about it. But I had a category, and if you want to make your own, you can. Or if you don't even have one, that's fine. But I had a horror movie franchise I want to see more of. I don't mean like I need more movies. I just mean like I've only seen one of these, and I'm very, very intrigued to go revisit it because it was so fucking fun. And that is the Leprechaun movies. I talked to Cycly about this. The first one is utterly absurd, but I was cracking my ass up. And of course, the coup de grace, the cherry on top, is if you make it all the way through the series. I think the last one is Leprechaun in the Hood, featuring Ice-T, where Leprechaun goes to downtown Detroit, starts killing people, and at one point he gets high.
well, of course.
What if the movie is only 10 minutes? He goes to the hood and they just fucking shoot him and steal his shoes into the fucking movie.
Yeah, because he's like cracker pop pop. All right, well that's it.
That's good.
He murdered like 20 people in the previous movies, but he couldn't last 5 minutes in downtown Detroit.
I'll go with one really fast. And I think it's one we made fun of a couple times on the pod. The Child's Play Chucky series. I've really never given this franchise a chance, to be honest with you. I've only seen the first one.
There's also a series that's out now too.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's never. I think we like kind of like what Matt's talking about. Like, okay, cool. It's like I get it. It's a human male adult in a child's body. Whatever. It doesn't seem that scary to me. But I've done a lot like on our horror on Reddit. Like people like legitimately like no. The franchise as a whole consistently. The movies they pump out outside of like the Seed of Chucky or Bride of Chucky, or one of them, whatever. They like people like just really enjoy it. So maybe
I think
give that a
Seed
shot.
of Chucky is almost like a straight up horror comedy, if I remember.
I think Chucky's like a Fast and the Furious thing where it's like, dude, it's an action movie, but like we're not going to defend it like it's the greatest thing ever, but it doesn't take itself seriously. It's just fun. That's what fans are kind of like.
Because isn't the concept like a serial killer dies, but his soul gets put into this doll?
Yeah.
Sold.
Makes sense.
I actually wanted to watch this, but I got on Peacock and they have all of them but the first one, and I was like, well, I'll just be confused.
What is happening? How did this doll get so angry?
There's way too much plot. I think Mark Hamill is actually the voice of the doll in the series.
Oh, damn.
Which, of course, we know he's an awesome voice actor.
Yeah, exactly. He's an amazing Joker.
Nice.
I'm gonna pick one that we need to give a break, and it's got a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes. I can't believe it. It's actually 9%.
Oh my god.
Oof. That is Shudder with Joshua Jackson, Charlie Conway. Have you guys seen this?
No. Is this where he's like a photographer?
Yes, it's kind of a rom-com horror movie, and he's a photographer. And he goes to Japan and they run over this chick and they can't find her, can't find his body. But then when he starts taking pictures, he noticed like a weird like white beam. And then this one person,
awesome.
Yeah, that's a spirit. And then you come to find out that he has this ex-girlfriend that he said was getting a little clingy, but turned out like him and his friends raped her, and then later, she killed herself. So now she's back to try to
this is fun.
Tell the new girlfriend of Joshua Jackson to like watch out stuff. It's actually really fucking good. The ending scene is like really fucking cool too, and it could lead to like a couple more movies. I watched it like a couple years ago. I'm like, you know what? This isn't that bad. It's definitely not 9%.
Yeah, that's pretty harsh. David Denman, who's Roy from The Office, is in it. I don't know if he's a big role.
So it was originally a Thai horror film that's been remade.
One of the guys that raped the. I love one of the best scenes. I'll always remember this is when he was like telling her how crazy she is, but then she found pictures of them like raping her. He's like, listen, we tried a couple things and we just decided maybe if we rape her, she'll like leave us alone. I'm like, wonder like where that was in the line of things. Like, what if you just tell her, we should go our separate ways? Yeah, well, let's rape her first. Then if that doesn't work, maybe we'll set her down and tell her like, hey, this relationship isn't working.
I have to say,
of course,
this movie being in 2008, that seems incredibly tone deaf for a plot. Like this is like if that came out in '94, I'd be like, oh, okay, I guess. I mean, not defending it, but like, yeah, that was way different time. Like that's fucking ridiculous for a movie that's like 14 years old.
You guys should check it out. It's pretty good though. Like it builds, and you're like, there's just cards being played. Like, huh, that's interesting. That's interesting. And like, there's like a huge story going on where you think it's just kind of a shitty little horror movie.
I mean, honestly, I'll give anything a shot that has an under 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. Just out of curiosity.
Like it cannot be that. Oh god, it is that bad.
Maybe it is bad, and I just don't remember. I don't.
Interesting. All right. Moving on. Second part of our show is our protein shake, where we go around talk about what's in our cup, also known as what have we watched lately. I know Cycling and I share a couple things. Most of mine I won't talk about too long. Geiger, why don't you go first? What have we seen lately?
I mean, I'm definitely into House of Dragon right now, which I know Jeff doesn't watch. Cycling does. Okay. Yeah. This
you can spoil it, obviously.
Is better than Game of Thrones, I think.
Whoa!
And the reason is because I'm speaking for everyone here, not just the throne heads. Yeah, I speak for everyone in the world. This stuff. But this is a way easier story to follow. It's one fucking family. Now there's other families that play to it, but it's not like Game of Thrones. Where like this story is about 80 fucking families, so try to keep up, and everyone's name's weird. Like I can really follow along with this story.
In Game
So
of Thrones, would there be episodes where, like, obviously they're telling all the different stories, where you're like, how do any of these stories connect? Or no?
there'd be times where I'd be like, who the fuck is that? I've seen him before, and what house do they belong to, and why is this even relevant? There's so many times that happened. And then I would kind of like it was almost like a class or sometimes at work when you're like in a meeting, like, listen, I'm only got about 40% of what you threw down there, but I'm just gonna keep chucking on like I understood everything because I don't want to ask any questions, sound like an idiot. But this one is phenomenal. I really like that the king is someone that I think everyone likes. He has his flaws, sure, but he's not a wartime king. He wants to keep the peace. He wants, the family to go. He makes some questionable decisions, but when you're a king, you're gonna fucking do that. That's a nice twist, and the way they're building tension, nothing is once again, there's some people in there, no one's done anything. I'm like, dude, just chill. It's gonna happen. They're building tension right now,
Yeah.
and it's about to fucking break. And that's what Thrones does. George R. Martin's a great storyteller in that regard, but there's sometimes later in the seasons where we're like, okay, let's just fight, kill, fight, kill. I'm like, I love fighting and killing, but I want it to mean something. I want to have stake, in the fight. I don't want just like, oh, these two guys look cool, let's have them fight. And the way they're building tension right now, and you're starting to kind of see subtleties that it's going to be like Civil War almost, times in the United States where I think it might be brother versus brother. We're going to see some of the Targaryens maybe, side with the other. I don't even know what the fuck they're called. Whatever the main chick's fucking family is that has the bastard kids, but I'm
Is
digging it.
George R. R.
Valerian.
Martin involved in this at all?
Yeah.
This is based on the books too.
Yes. I'd like to hear what you think of it, Cycly, because when I tell someone that, I'm like, man, this is starting off better than Thrones. Just I didn't have that much stake in Thrones other than, when they cut Stark's head off at the end. I'm like, okay, like we're gonna start to see some shit. But this tension's being built without, just killing babies or doing like anything outlandish.
Yeah, I mean, so I think there's a little bit of, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but like a little bit of, like, how Game of Thrones ended has really soured, I think, how a lot of people feel. But to me, I get what you're saying in terms of this being better than Thrones, in the sense that if you go back and restart Thrones, this is how Game of Thrones was. It was based on dialogue, character development, building the tension, and slowly built like the actual script that Game of Thrones was what made Game of Thrones so great. Like you said, seasons 5, 6, 7, and especially the last season that we shouldn't talk about, just was about, like you said, fighting, killing, for no reason. Well, for a reason, but not developed. That's what this is now. And so like I'm enjoying it now. I am a little nervous that like, hey, we've been through this dance before, like, but the difference, what I will say is this: we have an ending on this one. Like,
Yeah.
Game of Thrones surpassed the books, and that's when Game of Thrones.
And I think he
really...
said it's going to take him 4 seasons, 10 episodes to do it, which is fine.
Yeah.
The kids are all grown now. I think these are the actors that you're going to
no more
get
time
for the next
jumps.
3 seasons.
Yeah.
I
am someone who knows what happens in this story. It's
you can Wikipedia it real quick if you want.
Yeah, it's not hard. This is so it's pretty cool. Like I will say, even though I know exactly what happens, what will happen throughout the whole show, like I'm really enjoying it. Like I was nervous. I almost didn't want to. I'm still so bitter about how Game of Thrones ended. But it's I've been enjoying it. I will say that it's won me back over.
Obviously, without spoiling anything, knowing how this ends, do you like how it ends?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
from what you know? Okay.
I mean,
Kind of hesitated.
it's I think any prequel, and we talk about this with Star Wars. Anytime you're a prequel, you are set up for disappointment in the sense that you have the answer, right? Like the Star Wars, we knew exactly what was going to happen. The prequels, anytime you do a prequel, like it's just hard to like show an audience something that they haven't expected or aren't ready for. So for this, I mean, this is the nice thing is it's a couple hundred years before Game of Thrones take place. It kind of really gives you a little more background on the Targaryens, on the realm. So I mean, I'm really like I just think it's enjoyable to know, even if you know the ending.
The best part of this, and this is why I think it's better than the original Game of Thrones. And I'm just taking from season 1 versus season 1. This is better season 1 than original Game of Thrones. And the original Game of Thrones, we had the White Walkers, and we're like, oh, they're bad guys, right? And this is gonna fucking come on. This is like real fucking life, dude. Like there are no bad guys. I was like, if you're Republican, you think the Democrats are bad guys and vice versa. And this is, I don't know who the bad person is. I mean,
you're just rooting off interest for yourself. Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
and you can see, you're like, okay, well, she kind of had bastard kids, so I can see where they're coming from. But then I can also see her as like, but I gave birth to them, so they are Targaryen. Like, it's very interesting. Like, you can see both sides to it, and you can just see this all coming to a head. And it's so interesting with me. I hate like bad versus good and whatever. It's I usually cheer for like the bad people just because I like to watch the fucking world burn and I'm sick. But on this, I'm like, damn, I can see both sides. I can see why both people are pissed. I can see why there's so much fucking tension. And I can also see why the king are like, hey, who gives a shit who the king is? I'm the king, but I needed Damon's help and everything. We're a family here. Let's stay as a family. It's very interesting. Like the tension's being built every time there's a fight. I'm like, I can see both sides of this. That's what makes it so interesting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Game of Thrones, you're rooting for the Starks, unless you're sick, right? Like you said, like it's clear from the beginning who you're rooting for.
Yeah, and
this
maybe Khaleesi for a while, but
absolutely.
I mean, unless you're sick like me, like I mean, I always liked Jamie, but why would you like Jamie? But there's clearly good and bad people that you want to root for. Obviously, you want to root for the Starks. They're the Boy Scouts. They do everything right. You want to root for Khaleesi, and they didn't do her right at the end and turn her right. So you want to root for Khaleesi the whole time. But this is like, pick your poison, and we could have a 2-hour discussion, and we could both pick each side, and I guarantee you we both would have a really good argument on who's got the rightful of the throne and everything.
It's one of those things you pick a side, and you're like, you don't even know why you picked it. You just did. No. Sorry, Jeff.
Well, I was gonna say, do you think this is one of those weird instances where, like, I know that they have enough runway with the books, like, to tell the full story. We're assuming they're going to follow that religiously, right?
If they don't want to piss off the audience like they did with Game of Thrones,
so.
I would imagine, yes.
Okay. I just didn't know if those stories, obviously they're not probably, well, I don't know if Game of Thrones was revered until the show got as popular as it was, but I don't know if it's like, is it like blasphemy to possibly go against that? Or at this point, they're like, dude, if you think you have a better idea, go.
Right now, they're pushing the easy button on this one. I think I'm like, just fucking go by the books. I mean, the way we direct and the way we cast actors, it'll be phenomenal. If people don't want to figure it out, don't stay off Wikipedia, and you're fine.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, I probably need to check out that. But I haven't watched Game of Thrones, so
you don't have to watch Game of Thrones to watch this.
It
happens like 300 years before Thrones. It doesn't really fucking matter.
Perfect. All right, Cycly, what's in your cup? What have you seen lately?
So I'm gonna like just kind of with the spooky season, I'll stick to like more horror-esque things.
Yeah, all mine are horror that I have.
Sweet. So so some of these things I have seen. It's been a while, but I didn't get to talk about it on here, and I know you and I shared of some of that. So I'll start with one of the movies I've said was one of my anticipated films to start the year on our 2022 review or 2022 forecast, and that was Black Phone. That I don't know how much you've talked about it on pod, so I won't go too much into it. It came out 4 months ago.
Which, I mean, I understand Halloween, like October, September gets a little crowded, but man, I really wish it would have come out like this month.
It's just, yeah, I don't understand. That's not again the horror genre. Sometimes you get like the movies come out in February.
Because I find it hard to believe that they would not have had high hopes for this thing.
It's because it was. I mean, people knew about it for the last year because it was going around festivals and stuff. But I'll just quickly say, like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't find it particularly scary by any means, but I thought Ethan Hawke's performance.
His mask was fucking creepy.
His mask was amazing. I mean, that mask between the smile and the way he could change it. I thought his character, his villain. Well, it goes back into the realism that we talked about. Obviously, the Black Phone has some supernatural elements about how the kid was able to survive, but that kind of villain in your neighborhood, doing that, holding him in a basement, those kind of things do happen. Sadly, are very prevalent in society. I know you and I talked about this. I particularly thought the kids were amazing. I do think the girl in the scenes where she's, praying and stuff could be a little much. But I thought her dynamic with the bullies or with the adults of the city, I loved her on screen. I don't know her name off the top of my head, but I just love a movie when you get good performances from the kids.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the key actors were good. It was some of the ancillary kids, like the one from the beginning who he plays in the baseball game against. That kid was
Oh, yeah.
pretty
that
rough.
kid was bad. I love that my favorite thing about this movie, I was like, my God, this town, everyone's getting beat up all the time, and
There's
no
a
one
lot of
ends up
fights at the middle school. Yeah,
everywhere. And like
the
in
middle
the
school's
in
like
the
Fight Club, except you talk about it.
yeah, they're in the like convenience store. People are getting in a fight and everything. I'm like, Jesus, man, this town has a fighting problem. That movie had been anticipated for a while. I think it had been postponed because of COVID. So I was just like, so excited to see it. And yeah, Black Phone. If you haven't seen it, if you wanted just a good villain, a good performance,
And kind of a newer or
absolutely.
an interesting concept I hadn't really seen before too.
Yeah. The brother, the Ethan Hawke's brother, was a fascinating. Like
Yeah.
it was good.
It's on Peacock right now, I believe.
Yeah, Peacock went all out in October for horror.
They crushed it. There's a scene, Matt, that you would love in the Black Phone where the police are like canvassing door to door, asking if people have seen a specific car because they're looking for this child abductor. And they walk in this one guy's house, and he has like a fucking cork board set up with he's doing his own investigation. He's got all his own leads. And in front of the cops, he does a line of blow and then starts explaining his theories to them.
The cops are like,
Did you just do cocaine in front of us?
That's the one. I don't know if I can watch movies like that now that I have a kid.
It is
Yeah.
pretty tough for her, especially that was another scene where the dad is like beating the girl
Because
and
the son is
and
gone.
yeah, and like the son is seeing that, like her getting spanked. I was like, God, that felt way too like authentic. Like that performance was incredible.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but as a parent, it would creep you out in a whole different way than.
Yeah, like I already like anytime someone comes up like that I don't know is like, oh, he's really cute. I'm like, dude, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah,
I
for
don't
real.
know you.
Yeah, he is. Why don't you fucking say that from 100 feet away?
I always tell my wife, I'm like, he might be the biggest asshole ever, but he's not ever gonna be a victim. I don't care. Like, don't be nice to anyone you don't know.
Well, and I think that's Cycling. When is the movie set? Is it like mid 80s?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
So it was set in a time when like people just didn't lock their doors. Even what's the line Justin Cameron says?
Especially in this
I'd
small
love to
town in
not lock my
Colorado.
doors, but this isn't Canada.
And now with national news and stuff and YouTube, like you're like, my God, this happens a ton. And it's like it probably always happened. It wasn't as prevalent unless it happened in your town.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the thing we say. People act like today's more dangerous. Today is the safest time in human history. The difference is people didn't have access to information.
Yeah.
Things were always worse. We just didn't realize it. Now I know what happens to someone any day, like in Michigan, right? Like we are hearing things
back
all
in the
time.
60s, the Catholic Church was the safest place to be. I'm like, yeah, that's because no one talked. Like,
right.
Yeah, it was 1978. I just looked.
Oh,
it up.
okay.
Yeah, the grabber with his black balloons.
Yeah, it was creepy.
Worth a watch for sure.
Yeah, highly recommend. One of, if not the best horror movie of the year, I would say. I have to go look at my list, but all right. One that I watched on. I'll get two of these out of the way real quick. The only Scream movie I had not seen was Scream 4. I've actually kind of binge watched them all like in the past year. Cycling, I saw the newest one in theaters, and then I think I saw at least two of them with you, Cycling. Scream 2 and Scream. No, maybe not Scream 3. I love Scream 4. Really fucking good. It was on Paramount Plus. Didn't like a lot of like actors where you see them and you're like, oh, they're in this. So we have Hayden Panettiere, obviously Emma Roberts, and a bunch of the cameos that they use for the Stab movies in it are really good. Like Anna Paquin, Kristen Bell. I think there's one more actor that I'm forgetting, but I think Scream 4 does an awesome job of just continuing to somehow inject fresh blood into this series, keeping it fresh. And I'm actually kind of surprised, although glad, that after this movie, it took them so long to make another one because what year was Scream 4? I'll have to double check. But
I think it was 2012 or 11, something like that.
yeah, so 6 or 7 years because this movie was so good. I figured that they would just want to keep churning them out, but I'm kind of glad they didn't and let it breathe a little bit. Also, you almost need like the genre to evolve a little bit to make another Scream movie because it is sort of commentary on the other films.
Yeah, and this one really introduced social media, right? Like
like like the killer, putting the kills on the internet as they happen. Yeah. I love Scream 4. One day I'll have to do like a ranking of the franchise.
It'll be hard.
It'd be really hard. I might go the first one, the new one, and then Scream 4.
See, and then 2 is, man, 2 is just good too. I don't know. You could have an argument about all of that. I think
2 has,
that's the thing I said at the
one of the
beginning.
best twists as to who the killer is in 2, I think.
Yeah. Scream 3, and that's nothing against Scream 3, but that's the weakest one. And when that's your weakest one, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
100%.
One other one I'll mention before I toss it back over to Geiger. I rewatched Clue with the wife. She had never seen it. Just a hilarious movie to watch as an adult. A bunch of jokes I did not pick up on. I was in the hallway. I know because I was there.
He's such an icon.
Tim Curry is is he still with us or did he pass away?
I think he is still with us, but not well.
Yeah. He's the fucking man. He's so good. And just the whole aesthetic of this movie takes place in one night in a mansion. It's not a horror movie, but it's definitely like it has Halloween-y vibes. If you haven't seen this, I would just highly recommend going back and giving it a poke. It's great. And then I don't know if any movie else has ever done this, but Geiger, I think you told me about this too. Both of you guys did. At the end of the movie, it presents 3 different possibilities of endings.
Yeah.
And when you went to it when it first came out, you didn't know which ending you were getting.
Which is interesting.
Yeah,
and cool.
You go to the movie theater, you get one of them. And
so did they show you
something else?
Did they show you the other ones as alternatives at the end, or
Nope.
like you just really?
Yeah.
So you and I would be talking, and you'd be like, "That's not what happened."
Yeah, and then the cool thing was like, so people knew that, so you'd go to a different showing.
Genius.
Yeah.
I wish more movies would do that.
Yeah, the day and age, so it was cool. I actually got to my wife and I said, yearly tradition for us is watch Clue on Halloween. But the local theater where I live, the independent theater, did a showing. They did 3 showings, one on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, where they did one ending and you didn't know which one you were getting. So that was my first time to go in.
Is that the year we went in and got drinks at that one time?
No. This is one of those like small indie theaters that like are really run down and just like kept up by like one family who's owned it for 50 years. But it was really cool because I was like watching the whole time. I'm like, I don't know which ending we're gonna get, even though I've seen it 1,000 times. It was fun to not know.
Oh yeah. We talked about this on the pod like 4 years ago, but Ryan Reynolds' production company had bought the rights to this, and he was attached to a remake with Blake Lively set to play Miss Peacock, and then Hugh Jackman was going to play Colonel Mustard.
Yeah, so what's happened with that?
I don't know. I don't think there's been any movement on development.
I'm okay with them not doing it. Like, this is one of those perfect films, like, just don't touch.
I guess Knives Out is like our modern day Clue.
Yeah.
I still just haven't seen it because of Ryan Johnson.
Yeah.
Views.
God, he's like one of the people on our shit list.
How do you spell Ryan, guys?
All right, Geiger, what else you got?
That's enough.
We'll wrap it up.
2 movies that are like, I guess, my Halloween movies that I watch with my wife. First one is Beetlejuice. I still can't believe this was made for children in the 90s.
It's a different time.
This is when you know the friend that's like, he's good in like sections. Like I can't be with him a whole weekend. That's Tim Burton. Like he gave us Batman, but then like you can't give him the keys to the whole house because then you get Beetlejuice, which is like the weirdest, trippiest fucking movie I've ever seen. Like I'll watch it on TV and I'll jump in halfway through. I'm like, oh, Beetlejuice is on, and I'll watch a scene like this is kind of cool. And then something will happen. I'm like, hey, it kind of lost me. If you watch that movie start to finish, it's like a hard watch, dude.
It was before Batman, right?
Yes, because that's what got Keaton the role, I think.
Well, so I was going to say, is that part of the reason people were freaking out when he got cast? Like, dude, because that role is ridiculous.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, Keaton probably could have played the Joker. I mean, he's very Joker-esque as Beetlejuice, for sure. That movie is a lot, man. Like it's really trippy. I would recommend to be on drugs if you watch it. It's not a good movie. Like I'm just gonna say, if that was not something that you could throw on Freeform during 31 Days of Halloween, it would never be on TV because it's not a good fucking movie. But it attaches to a holiday, so people throw it on. The second one is Hocus Pocus, and every time I watch this, I'm like, this is a 90s girls Mighty Ducks. And I try to appreciate it that way because the movie was not made for me. I don't think it's that good. I'm not saying okay. I'm not saying it's not a good movie. It's not a good movie for me. I can see where some people think it's a good film, but when I watch it, I don't get the fuzzy, you know, memberberry vibes from it just because I never watched it as a kid. But when I watch it, I'm just like, it's fine. It's a fun poppy Halloween movie, but that's really all it is. Once again, if it wasn't a Halloween film, I would never ever watch it and think it was an awful film. I don't know what you guys think of Hocus Pocus, but I've just never been a fan.
I kind of agree. Like, I've always just been like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I'm not like a diehard for it. But I will say, as a kid, those witches scared the shit out of me. Like, I would have nightmares that they were going to come in my room and abduct me.
But it wasn't made for us. I think it was made for, the Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen chicks that we grew up with, it was a girl movie for sure.
See, I just, I mean, I get what you're saying, but like, it felt so 90s to me. Like the Max character.
Yeah.
Like, like.
Which one's Max? Is Max the cat?
Isn't he the main
guy?
No,
that's like the main guy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Ice, the kid that steals his shoes, that has ice
like
shaved in the back.
Kid who doesn't, no one understands me. I had to move to a new city because of my parents. Like, that movie is so 90s. I think
he's from California.
Yeah,
and he moved.
Cali kid to Salem.
Cool. Which isn't that big. Like, we're acting like a Cali kid moves to like Missouri. Like, that's still West Coast. Like, it's still like Oregon and California. I don't think are two different of people.
No, it's Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh, Salem, Massachusetts. I think it was Salem, Oregon. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on it either.
That's at least what I'm assuming,
just
because of the witches.
But that is different. That's fine.
But yeah, for me, I think like I get what you're saying, but yeah, it's nostalgia. It's 90s boner nostalgia. For sure.
Mighty Ducks is a good film. So that's
absolutely.
We had a watch party at our house. Just not a watch party, but we had like some friends over, and we watched it, thoroughly enjoyed it, but I was drunk, so it might not have been.
Well, I was hoping someone on pod. I bet Banner has seen a Hocus Pocus too.
I've seen it. Yeah.
Did you like it, Cycling?
It was nothing like the first one, obviously. Like, I mean, it was like the first one. There was nothing to hold my like.
I hated it.
It was fun to watch it once. It didn't do anything for me. It was fine.
Listen how careful he is with this review, so we don't lose the one female subscriber we have. Say it fucking blew.
No, it didn't blow. It really didn't.
We didn't need it. No one asked for it.
I just thought it was. I actually really liked the opening. That was my favorite part. Like, I wish we had gotten more of that, of the witches as kids.
Did all the three witches come back?
They do.
Wow,
there is one funny scene.
Sarah Jessica Parker back. That's awesome.
Yeah. There is one funny scene where they have to go get brooms to fly on from the local CVS, and because like they don't sell fucking normal brooms anymore, they end up leaving on like a Roomba.
That's funny.
Swiffer, and I can't remember what the other one is.
The Roomba was one of my favorite additions.
I was dying laughing at that point. Yeah.
The modern day broom, and it helps him get out of the salt circle. Like, yeah. Like, the movie was fun. Like, there's nothing on the first one. And again, we're not at the age where the nostalgia is going to win us over. But I didn't hate it. Like, I was like, all right.
Yeah. It wasn't horrible. All right. Cycler, I only have two more that I want to talk about, and you've seen both of them, so we can just combine them.
Yeah, I have two really quickly. I'll go over.
Why don't you go?
One, recently, for the first time, and I was texting you during, watched 2015 M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong's The Visit. And if I had seen this movie in 2015, what I would say on the commentary is, guys, M. Night is back. He's
back, babe.
Because this movie,
he ain't going nowhere.
No, this movie is... I cannot believe, my sister has been telling me to see this movie forever. I finally was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and watch it. I loved this movie. This is an M. Night top 5 for sure.
I guess, did I forget? Did he actually direct it or did he just write it?
I don't know.
Directed.
Wow. Yep, he directed and wrote it.
He's back, bro.
it's one of his better acted movies. Like, say what you will about M.
That
Night
is true.
Shyamalan, like he can have a good story, and like God, some of the acting in his
Like
films
Mark
is just
Wahlberg in The Happening.
so bad. But this movie, the kids again, like I said for Black Phone, fantastic kid actors. There's a lot of awkwardness with the 13-year-old teenage boy rapping and trying to be cool, and it's like weird to watch. But you're like, no, dude, that's what 13-year-old boys are like. Just the creepy concept, the people who played the grandparents. I don't want to give anything away,
Yeah,
obviously.
cool
if you haven't
twist because the
seen this
twist is the
film.
whole movie, I think.
The twist, I mean, my God, even though it's an M. Night and you're ready for a twist, and you're like, I thought it was fantastic. I think M. Night had dug himself a hole where this movie isn't talked about enough, probably because not enough like people were like kind of done with him after for a while. But if you want a good, eerie, creepy, just well written, well acted horror film with a twist, go watch The Visit, 2015, M. Night Shyamalan. Absolutely fantastic.
M. Night is like that couple that like keeps breaking up and they get back together and is hot and heavy for a few weeks and then they're like, you know what, you just fucking suck as a person, and then they break up again for like 3 months and go fuck other people and then get back together again.
And they totally redeem themselves.
Yeah, it's like the same pattern over and over.
Yeah, so that 100% recommend for me. And really quickly, because I think I know what you're about to say. So I'm going to go with Orphan First Kill on Paramount Plus.
About time.
Guys, not joking. This movie was actually good.
Yeah,
Like,
it's on my list.
You and
I
know
were
what you're
joking
getting
about it, and then you were like, no, actually, it's not that bad though.
It's not. Yeah, it's an amazing. Absolutely not. But first of all, you should know what you're getting into with a movie, with this franchise, I guess you can call it now, with the second one. If you've seen the first one, you know what this is. So it's a prequel. And again, like I mentioned, being a prequel is always hard. You know where the movie's going. There's not going to be you don't think she's going to die because you know she's alive in the second one, in the original.
What if they did just kill her though? That'd be so funny.
Now I'm confused. I will say again, you can call this one for having a twist. I wouldn't say it's a twist in the movie. I would say it's a twist in what you're getting out of the prequel. I like what they did with it. They did something to keep even though it's the same idea about a girl getting adopted and she's not who they think she is. There is something they do that changes the narrative and makes it really original in terms of a fun way. So guys, like an hour and 20-minute movie on Paramount Plus, Orphan First Kill, turn your brain off. It's fun.
Orphan First Kill kind of sounds like a Steven Seagal or Jean-Claude Van
It
Damme
really
movie.
does. It's a terrible name.
But like the orphan is like killing other people. She's like fighting terrorists.
Yeah.
On a submarine. All right, real quick. Two that Cycling and I saw both. Do you want to start with Barbarian or Halloween Ends?
Hey, you pick.
All right, let's go Barbarian because I feel like that reaction was too Barbarian. So Matt, you might have seen this. This is a movie about two people a woman goes to an Airbnb she rented in the middle of the night. She has a job interview in the morning. It's raining. She goes there and realizes that it's been double booked by a separate booking website like Airbnb and Vrbo. There's another person there. And they both just decide, all right, let's just fucking stick it out for tonight. It's too late. There's no hotels around, of course. And in the trailer, she wakes up in the middle of the night and the man is missing. And she realizes that there is a basement to the house that appears to be more than it seems. Now, that's the marketing that got Cycling and I in the theaters. Cycling, I guess I'll just toss it to you off the top. Do you feel like we were sold a false bill of goods? And then beyond that, what were your thoughts on Barbarian?
I don't fault anyone for marketing something and then giving us something else, because especially in the horror genre, it's kind of fun and fresh. It keeps us on our toes. We're getting creeped out. We're trying to think ahead a couple steps. I really tried to avoid marketing for this movie. I was really excited about like what I was hearing on the streets and
the streets
on the streets. Yeah. That I
You're
walk
the kid
around.
on the streets.
And I will say, based on the marketing, the whole Justin Long approach, the girl entering the Airbnb, that was not the concept I thought we were getting an Airbnb creepy story. And again, not to try and spoil anything, it's not really what we get. kind of what we get, but not really.
Yeah, that's a part of the story, but like I would say maybe a third of the.
Yeah, it's really the surface, quite literally the surface. And
See what you did.
I think overall, you and I talked about this movie. I saw it in a drive-in, which was a really fun experience, but also might have taken away a little bit of the creepiness of seeing a horror movie in a dark theater. I just felt at the end of the day, as creepy as the movie was, there were just too many holes in the story, and I'm not trying to be one of those people like, that doesn't make sense. It just falls pretty quickly. It's very much built on a house of cards for you to like get involved in the story.
Yeah, there was just a lot of ideas in this that I think some of them work in isolation, but as a cohesive film, I kind of appreciated in some ways that it tonally was like pretty eclectic. Like there's times it was like a laugh out loud comedy, and then there's other times it was a really fucking scary horror movie. But when you sort of put the whole recipe in the pot together and cook it as a stew, it kind of has a gross taste.
Yeah. It's just like you think you walk out of the theater, be like, that was really good. And you start talking about it in the car, and then you're
And
like,
it falls apart. Yeah.
you're like, wait a second, that didn't make sense. Neither did that. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
I
one of
still
those.
enjoyed it though.
It was like sort of a situation where my opinion of the movie changed pretty drastically between when I got up from my seat to when I got to my car in the parking lot.
Yeah, absolutely. By the time my wife and I got home, I was like, maybe I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought.
It was sort of like take Geiger and I at The Dark Knight Rises, where we got up from the theater like, what was that? And then by the time we got to the car, we're like, do we need to fucking murder Christopher Nolan?
Just shit ourselves.
We said some horrible things on that walk back to the car.
I will
Our
say
last-
Justin Long is a great creepy. Like he's always weird in movies. I like him.
Dude, I'm such a Justin Long apologist. Like, I just think some people hate him. I think he's just fucking awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Halloween ends. I mean, there's not much we can say without really spoiling it. I'll just say this. Really, really disappointed in this. And Matt, as someone who liked the 2018 one, just stop there. Because this thing, Halloween Kills is a bit of a downward step. Not a bit. It's a downward step from the 2018 one. This movie, maybe Cycling and I too high of expectations. This thing falls off a fucking cliff. And I think now that I've had time to think about it, I'm angry.
Yeah, this is.
Does it show Michael Myers like almost as old and fragile or something in it?
Yeah, it does.
He's in a nursing home. He's in hospice. He's getting flowers and saying mea culpas.
Okay, that's where someone I said, and I was like, that's an interesting take on it, making him like almost a victim almost.
Well, he is like, I don't know, he's Michael Myers, where it's like when he needs to get his good fastball again, like he can reach back and get a little extra. But yeah, for the most part in the movie, the problem, is it a spoiler to say when he shows up in the film?
I don't even care.
All right, skip ahead 30 seconds. You don't see Michael Myers.
Who cares? Fuck you if you haven't.
You don't see Michael Myers at all until the 41-minute mark of this movie.
And when you see him, it's just like
a quick image of him. Which
I'll say,
mad about.
What's the movie about then?
Exactly.
It's not.
Some kid named Cord.
This might be the least Michael Myers focused Halloween movie since Halloween 3. How about that? This is just a different movie with the name Halloween in the title.
Okay.
There was a comment I saw on Reddit that I full-heartedly agree with. I sent it to you, Jeff, that this trilogy is backwards.
Mm-hmm.
If you took the concept, if you watch all three of them, that this should arguably be the first one. Halloween Kills remains the second one. And the way Halloween 2018, that should have been the culmination, where Jamie Lee Curtis is frayed. She's locked in. She's ready. Like, she's just like obsessed. And it ends with that final confrontation, right? Like that's how this should have ended. So in my head, 2018 is a great place to put this franchise or this story to bed, at least. This movie, I just don't understand what they were going for. Like, how are you telling me this is it? We're taking one of the greatest horror films, like Matt talked about at the beginning, and we're not even going to make it about Michael Myers. I mean, like, what the hell?
Yeah, and then he doesn't even kill anyone until like 15 minutes after that, which is...
So, is it over? Or are they...
It's over.
It's over.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if, like, some 8-year-old chick's like, well, just wait till she's 18 because she's going to be a new Michael Myers.
I mean, they're going to just they'll do something else.
They'll figure something out, but...
they just won't do it, Jamie Lee. They'll open the story up again. Like, they'll just restart it.
Yeah. it definitely doesn't end where it's like, well, this is the next one. Like, there's possibilities, but it's only like that's not the point of it. I think the thing I felt like for them to have this have been planned out beforehand, which we know it was. I'm like, this is your finale.
I don't want to spoil anything for Matt, but man, the Spider-Man 2 ending. Like, what was that?
It's just, I guess it was sort of a victim of its own success because the 2018 one, I was like, dude, this is gonna be fucking like they have a plan for 3 movies, like this is one cohesive story, and the first one fucking kicked ass, and then it was just like, oh,
yeah, I think I agree, fully angry.
All right, that's all I got. Banner's not here to make the bird noise, but last part of our show, do you even lift bra? We ask a question that we leave you guys with regarding movies. The question this week, as it has been since, I don't know, episode 160. What are the bros' top 100 movies of all time? Geiger, we will go to you first, but before we do that, why don't you tell the people at home, what are these lists of our top 100 movies? Because they're not your AFI's finest films of the past century.
And that might be Banners, with Sing 2 and whatever the fuck else he watches. But these are our lists. So movies that hold a special place in our hearts. And it might be something that we watch every Christmas. It might be something that our first time in the theater or the first date we went on and we're like, oh, this is a fucking awesome movie. It's just something that holds special place in our heart, or the first time we ever saw The Rock try to act. You know what I'm going for.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything that we can, and I know Jeff loves to do this on, Banner's 64th movie was this and mine was this, and it could be like Good Will Hunting versus like fucking George of the Jungle. You never know.
They're all over the place. So, Geiger, we'll start with you. Last you gave us was your number 63 movie of all time, which was Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Thurman's is The Accountant. Banner's was The Talented Mr. Ripley. Mine was the 1997 animated Hercules, and we'll get Cycles in a second. So what is one ahead of that as your number 62nd favorite movie of all time?
So mine is going to be Hook, which we also did a movie commentary. So interesting, too, when we were doing that commentary that we were just young lads at the time. I don't know. We might have been 5. I don't know how old we were. But we didn't know what critics were. There wasn't no Rotten Tomatoes. We go into a movie and we decided if we fucking liked it or not. And that was pretty much the end. And then we tell our friends. But I loved Hook. I didn't know that the fucking critics hated it so much. I
was totally oblivious.
Clue that Spielberg thought it was like his worst fucking film ever, which is also interesting. But it's not a problem I have with Hook, but at the end, I still don't understand the ending. I don't know if it's a dream. I don't know if, it couldn't have been a dream because obviously, his kids were taken and stuff, but Smead or whatever was there at the end. But man, how they made Neverland come to life on this was phenomenal filmmaking. Dustin Hoffman as Hook, I'll have to say he's the second best pirate behind probably Johnny Depp. But at the time, the best fucking pirate adaptation we've ever seen on screen. Oh, and Robin Williams, there is nobody that could play an older Peter Pan. And the storyline of it, how simple it would have been is just do a Peter Pan movie. But instead, let's make Peter Pan like 40. Let's make him hate his life and have like a hard job and forget who he was and have to re-find it. So basically, this is a sequel to Peter Pan, which is a movie we saw as a Disney cartoon. And it's the most creative thing I've ever seen because anyone else now, Disney's remaking movies that they already made where they could do like sequels of this, what they did with Hook. It was phenomenal. I remember watching it as a kid, and even as a young Geiger, I love the slow build. I remember all my friends watching on VHS, like, when's he become Peter Pan? This is boring. I'm like, dude, you got to wait for it. You got to wait for the fucking payoff at the end. It's a phenomenal film.
Yeah. Two things to that.
Megan Fox's favorite film, so I have something to talk to her about whenever I meet her.
Oh wow, that's a perfect opener. Yeah, I mean, like, if you think about it, the reason, like, okay, Robin Hood, it's same fucking story. I mean, I love Robin Hood, but like, you tell us the same story over and over again. This had the balls to like take a character we know, and it's like, what if we totally fucking flip this on its head for you? Like, make it contemporary, and like, Pan is in the real world with no memory of being Peter Pan. It's almost like reintroducing it to a new audience where they're like, I don't even know this story, so I'm basically Peter. 'Cause I don't know what it is.
It's a perfect movie too for your parents to go to. And now for us, whenever I watch it, I like notify with it. I'm like, oh yeah, now I have a fucking wife and kids, and I kind of forgot what it's like to just fucking play and do pretend shit and stuff. And it's really cool. Like it's something for all ages, really. Like a parent could take their kid to it, and everyone could have had fun watching them film. And Robin Williams is hilarious in it, of course.
Oh yeah, and also how cool is Rufio?
Rufio.
Which I don't think he was like a character in.
I don't think he was either. I think they just made him up for this.
Just something they added in, which he was fucking awesome. But man, it was and the Captain Hook thing where he just wants to kill himself all the time because he just lives for the fight. Now there's no fight, which is fucking hilarious. But it's like Smeed, he's like, pull the trigger. I'm good. I'm really gonna do it this time.
Smee, why do I pay you? Stop me, Smee.
He's like, trying to stop me, Smeed. I got a gun to my head. What are you doing? And Smeed's like, this is every Tuesday.
That scene is like us when we're about to make that 3-game parlay on NFL Sunday.
Like like that meme is used on the Bro4 Squad circle so many times. We're like, I'm really gonna do it this time, Smee. Like he's got the gun to his head. Like I'm not kidding.
A test for Shmee. He's like, you're really just gonna sit there and let me fucking do this? No, that's a great one. That's one that
Jack.
We talk a lot about, like movies that might end up on everyone's list, and that's... even for being in the 60s, I think that's a good candidate here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's on mine. That's for sure.
So, all right, Cycly, you have 60. You actually have only done your 64th, which was the 2011 Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
Geiger's was Southpaw. Mine was the original Deadpool. What is your number 63 favorite movie of all time?
Yeah, like this is I sticking with the horror. Actually, funny enough, I'm gonna go with Netflix original movie Hush. And Jeff, I know you've seen this. I don't know if you liked it as much as I did, but this movie is basically about a woman who lives out in the woods. And she's deaf, and she's a writer, and she's just out there trying to write, and again, literally, and gets it's almost Strangers-esque. Because I think why I like this movie is kind of like this is the Strangers, but the victim's a deaf woman, and the movie has extremely little dialogue. So the movie is all just built up tension and fear, and so I credit a film that is able to do something like that without relying on script, right? Like you're just having to feel what she's feeling. And to watch a deaf person like go through someone breaking in the house, not hearing footsteps, not hearing noises, things get knocked over, seeing how she deals with those elements, that's something I never have thought about ever until I saw this film. And it's just, I don't know. I found that movie refreshing take on like we've been talking about all day, on a horror movie that can actually happen, right? Like this is extremely realistic. There's nothing superhero-esque about the villain. Really love, again, like Strangers, we don't know who or why the murderer is doing what he's doing. The mask is extremely freaky, and the coolest thing about it is he reveals. Do you remember this, Jeff? She literally takes his mask off, and he's like, okay, here's my face.
Yeah.
And
I remember there's a really cool scene, without spoiling it, that involves like breaking of glass, and because she can't hear it, it's almost more horrifying because like you can see he's like breaking glass, but she's like hiding, and he's doing it like in the same room to just fuck with her.
Yeah, and she is. I just love that because it takes the power. Like he's like, yeah, here's my face. Why does it matter? Like in Strangers, you're creeped out because you're their haystack mask, and who are they? He's like, look, it doesn't matter if I have a mask or not. I'm going to kill you. Like, oh man, that movie is creepy. It's just refreshing. It's probably one of the best slasher films I think we've gotten in the last 5-6 years. So I think it was pretty revered again for and the actress in it is Kate Siegel or Siegel. I'm not sure exactly how you say her last name, but she's become a darling of the horror franchise to me, her genre. She is in The Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor and a couple other things. Like, she's really up in the horror genre, and I love it. I think she's producing and working in fantastic stuff. So if you like that kind of stuff, absolutely recommend Hush on Netflix.
Yeah, and then John Gallagher Jr., who plays Man, he's in a ton of stuff. 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh, that's right, yes.
All right, what's your number 62?
So I'm jumping genres. I'm going to go to Hot Fuzz. Simon Pegg, Edgar Wright,
So good.
buddy cop comedy. What I love about this movie, again, like it's kind of like the Scream for comedy, right? Like it's very meta comedy. It's very British dry humor. This like type A cop who's too good of his job, so they send him away because he's causing the police problems by causing too much paperwork. Send
Yeah.
him to the safest village in all of England, and there he finds out a grand conspiracy of the safest village. The comedy in it is just pure gold. I mean, the swans, the part, everything about. I don't know. I don't want to go into it if you haven't seen it because I don't want to spoil anything. But again, this is pure, brilliant written comedy, not slapstick, not stupid, not just it's just really just a fun movie. There's a couple of movies of his that I just love, and this one and one other are on this list.
So I have Hot Fuzz on my because I love Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. It's my 154th best movie, behind Scream and just ahead of Spider-Man 2.
Ooh, nice. It's good. That's a good little pocket of films right there.
Yeah. So it's held up high.
There's one, like I said, I think you can guess what other one is in my top 100. Is pretty close to this movie. I go back and forth between this one and that other one on which is my favorite.
I think Timothy Dalton, is that his name? The former James Bond?
Yeah.
It's just hilarious to see him in a role like this, like so utterly ridiculous, and he's like kind of a revered.
The way the murders are, the killings are in this movie, the way the action sequences are filmed, the callbacks to Bad Boys, like it's just a great homage again to buddy cop movies.
Yeah, love Hot Fuzz. All right, let's round it off. Number 61, Geiger. What's just ahead of Hook for you?
I'm gonna go Anchorman. And this is a time when Will Ferrell could do no wrong, and I know his stick kind of got a little old, but we got to stop thinking about Anchorman 2, because the first Anchorman, which I haven't watched in a really long time, until a couple months ago I rewatched it start to finish, not on cable. And it is fucking phenomenal. I mean, the cast in it is just an all-star cast.
Like the cameos of people that you're like, holy shit.
The cameos, but I mean, just I love Christina Applegate from her days even with Married with Children and everything she's in. I think she's like one of the best female comedians that you wouldn't really think is like a comedian, but she is fucking hilarious.
Well, and she's even funnier because she's the straight man, basically.
Yes, and she's the one trying to keep them all like in line and stuff, and it's set in a time that you could just kind of bark at a woman in the office and everyone just kind of laugh and not fucking care about it or anything. But man, this movie is so fucking phenomenal. Jack Black makes an appearance.
That's such a good scene.
I mean, but before he was in The Office, he was in this. You got Paul Rudd. You got
Keckner, of course.
Keckner, who's also kind of in The Office. But I mean, it's such a great film. And then the just the aspect of it, it's not as goofy as a character because he's just a newscaster. He's not like a fucking ice skater or whatever. But how he reads the news and he'll just read the teleprompter. It's fucking great.
Whatever you put on there. I think one of the most, like, the lines that I laughed at the most, and like at the time I didn't get how humorous it was, is when Wes Mantooth, which, by the way, fucking hilarious name.
That's a great name.
When Vince Vaughn and them get in the argument, and they reference how Vince Vaughn's station is number 2 in the ratings. And we've all been this person where he has no fucking counter argument, but he has to clap back. So he goes, we both know those rating systems don't take into account houses that have 2 or more television sets and other things of that nature.
Like that's like the thing that they say around their water cooler. Like it's bullshit. It's a flawed system.
He just like read it in some article somewhere. Doesn't even really know what it means. Because you guys can't, even the guy who can't think said something. Yeah, Will Ferrell
is a saint.
Saint. I'll just have to take you at your word. Number 2.
That's so great.
All right, Cycly, what's your 61st movie of all time?
It's actually the Joker. And
Todd Phillips Joker?
Yeah. It's for me, you guys, I mean, again, I always repeat myself. I just love dark, gritty movies. And as a Batman fan, and just the lover of that kind of Gotham universe, where it is just like a broken down Gotham where there's no hope. It just like gave me that feeling I wanted from a Batman. Obviously, Batman, not Batman movie, but that Batman family genre. Joaquin Phoenix is a crazy person in real life, but damn, he just knocks it out of the park. And the absolute beautiful score that accompanied
The score won
the
like every
scenes.
Academy Award.
I
right?
mean, the scenes where Joaquin is just in front of the mirror and that the theme is going, it's just like, it's iconic. Like you walk, I remember it's one of those films that sticks with you like after you watch it. This is why it's on my why it is where it is for me, because I walked out of the theater just feeling uncomfortable. You
Yeah.
know, like
which is what it wanted. So mission
Yeah.
accomplished.
And then that's my thing is like, is it one of the best movies? Probably not. I mean, I don't know. It just, the movie had an impact on me, and it makes you question society. It makes you question who are you actually rooting for. It does all these things that you're not supposed to do. And yeah, I just felt uncomfortable. Like, I think I was, even though it's not scary, I went home and like watched a palate cleanser. Like I put on
Yeah,
Seinfeld
you got to
or
watch like the
something, you know?
Muppets after this.
Yeah. So I just, again, Joaquin Phoenix, unbelievable performance, score, script, setting, Gotham, love it.
It is
Yeah,
a very good movie. It's not a Joker movie, but it's a very good movie.
Yeah.
That's the only problem
a
I have
conversation. That's a different conversation. I have my own philosophy on this. He is not the Joker. I've said this before. He inspires and creates the Joker. Like someone in the crowd saw him doing.
So like
that.
Heath saw him.
That'd be
Because he's
cool.
too old. Yeah,
Yeah.
like he's an inspiration.
Yeah.
That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
We'll say the meme of him doing stand up with his little book has become
I love it.
pretty fucking hilarious. Like anytime someone tells a horrible joke, that's the meme.
It's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, only I'll say that movie was it everything it wanted to achieve, it did, but almost too well. Like I am just, it's a movie I'll never be able to rewatch. I'm like
it's fair.
out by it, and that's what it wants.
Absolutely.
All right, my number 61 was the quote I used to open up the show, tying in perfectly with Halloween theme, I guess. And you guys did a commentary on this. Go check it out. It is the Jordan Peele directorial debut, Get Out.
Don't go check it out, actually.
Might have one of our best cold opens of all time.
Please just get drunk or high when you listen to it.
I think it just opens with Geiger saying, just for the record, I don't have a racist bone in my body. I think we all remember. I mean, Get Out. Look, Jordan Peele is one of those guys where all of his movies are swings for the fences, which I appreciate to varying degrees of success. But I don't. I mean, maybe it's just we kind of live in our own echo chambers. But I don't think I've talked to someone that didn't like Get Out.
It's an unbelievable film.
Like
One of the greatest movies of our generation.
Yeah, just respected it for what it was. So. I mean, the thoughts of the bros on the commentary, I pretty much echo. That was one that I enjoyed listening to. But I'll just say, like, if you want a director that is constantly trying new things, putting out unique ideas and ideas that he holistically sees through, meaning he writes and directs it, so it's kind of one singular vision, Jordan Peele is your guy, and Get Out to me is like a perfect execution of that. You can take it on so many deeper levels and all the metaphors and, you know, allegories for like the world socially that we live in, and it works. Or you can just take it as a creepy fucking thriller / horror movie that is an interesting concept with good acting. Like you can get as much or as little out of it as you want. And the reason I think this is so much better than his other two films is I don't think you can watch, at least Us, and just on the surface get much out of it. Like Us, there's so many deeper meanings to it that it's like, Jesus.
Almost too many.
Yeah. This one, it like works on whatever you want to get out of it. If you want to get high and watch it, that's great. If you want to just sit there and chill with your friends and barely pay attention to it, it's still also awesome. So Get Out. All right,
I think that might be. I wonder if that's also on everyone's. That would be interesting. It's on mine for sure.
The only one I would. Maybe it wouldn't be on would be Nate's, but I'm not sure.
I don't know.
He's racist.
That's true, and he would not have voted for Obama for a third term.
What's the line I have about Tiger Woods in the movie? One of the guys says to him at the barbecue.
I don't know,
But you-
something about Tiger, but I think we're all. I mean, I love Tiger, but
Of course.
Oh yeah.
I love Tiger. I mean, I love Tiger more than anyone on the pod for sure.
Jerry Maguire, I'm Mr. Black People.
Mr. Black Person.
Denver deals with me all the time. All right, for the American Hero's not on this episode. Who am I kidding?
Before him, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the enforcer, Matt Geiger, and our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli. I'm the mayor, Jeff Hornacek. I guess instead of speaking for you, any last thoughts, Geiger? We'll let you go first.
Just pull over for emergency vehicle. Someone texted me to say it and paid me $2.
I hope you got Venmo for that also. Cycli, what do you want to leave the people
Usually I'd say the left lane is for going fast or passing, so stick to that. But because it's Halloween, if you are going to give drugs, just drop it off at my house instead of giving it to children. I'll take them.
Yeah, because they're just going to throw it away. Narcs.
We're cool. We're cool with drugs. We pass the grass to ourselves.
Weed is tight. Weed is tight. All right, we are the Bro Force Squad podcast. Thank you guys for checking us out. Follow us on Twitter at Bro Force Squad. Type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words. We're on everything: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube. We're also on Instagram, same handle at Bro Force Squad, and then everything is on our website, broforcesquad.com. Till next time, happy Halloween. And when can we put up the Christmas decorations? Do we have to wait like 1 hour after October 31st?
Thanksgiving Day. That's my rule.
That's fair.